AI is not going to put lawyers out of business, but it will put lawyers unwilling to work with AI out of business.
Are smarter smart contracts going to put you out of work? Or are they at least going to, I guess, reduce the need for, lawyers, at least in certain categories, in any significant measure? Or is your profession just going to evolve, and are we going to have as many lawyers in 10 or 20 years than we had 10 or 20 years ago?
So, the denialist will say no, and it's all where there's going to be more work. I mean, there's a general issue here about what's AI going to do to the economy, right? And a saying, and it's been adopted for most professions. I think the legal profession is probably apropos to it, and it's, AI is not going to put lawyers out of business, but it will put lawyers unwilling to work with AI out of business. And that might be one way to think about it. The thing to think through is, in many industries, right? So you could say the same in accounting.
Yeah.
We're going to have a question of the appropriate size and format of organizations. That's just going to happen because you're going to say, why do you need 5,000 lawyer law firm anymore? Because some of what you have is repetitive volume work that these tools are going to be able to handle. But some of it needs people who are working at the top of their skill set, at the top of the experience curve, at the top of the profession, and the stakes are high. So, those of us with a certain level of expertise, experience, and flexibility, right? It's that, that old book from kindergarten, The Incredible Flexible You. So that, to me, becomes the important piece. We're going to change the way we do things. We'll change the way we do our work. We'll change what we're working on, change what we're advising on. But there's still a role. And the reason there's still a role goes back to what I said at the beginning about relationships, right? You're now dealing with a different set of parties, but it's still a different set, but it's at relationships at its core.
Yeah.
And that, to me, means you have to regulate those relationships, and you'll have disputes among those who are involved in it.
So obviously, lawyers have, privacy agreements with their clients. You'll tell me what the exact terminology is. But short of sharing, I'm working with company X and this is their problem and this is how I'm helping them address it. Do you have a story? Is there some situation that you found yourself into recently in Web3 that maybe, epitomizes, the challenges that the Web3 industry faces,
Sure. So I won't name names, but I'll say this. I mean, and I've seen this quite a few times now, there's a lot of copycats out there, right? So as soon as you have a good idea, the question quickly becomes, how you get the word out and expand that offering and commercialize it. And there's enough people out there who are prepared to grab your idea and, squat on your concepts that surprisingly, that's happened a number of times that I've seen of late. And one of the issues to me that then comes back to what do you do to structure your business? Those who are much better positioned to deal with that are the ones who have put at least some work in the beginning into, okay, here's your identified entity, and here's what your terms of use are, and here's what you have a right to, and here's when people are getting access, and having forms of protection for your confidentiality, having agreements with your counterparties. I mean, handshakes are great, but it also is really what can lead to a lot of these types of problems if people don't put the time into some basics around their agreements and protections.
Which seems very fitting for an industry that, as we said, is kind of building the plane as it's flying it, right? It's like, make sure just, at least before you take off, that you have kind of, that the engines are running, that the wheels are attached, and that the wings are attached too, by the way.
That's right. And I mean, and the other part of it is, and again, I think it's very important we not confine this isn't unique to Web3, but when you have somebody who has a passion and a technical skill set, it's not necessarily the first thing that you think about is, do you realize there's lots of people out there who are very willing to steal your ideas? People don't think that as a default necessarily, so it's important to understand it. And also to know that, the cost benefit of putting some time into that is invariably, it's peace of mind, but it's also to have some form of legal protection.
Yeah. Do you have an elevator pitch for your business? Like if I'm a potential client, which I am, or theoretically I am, but maybe more for the builders, on blockchain specifically, or on chain, I should say. How do you present your business right now to those companies? What is your 1 or 2 minute? We do this for these people, and this is why you should hire us.
So first of all, I'm a business lawyer where I have, by choice, maintained an independent practice because my focus is being responsive to the clients I work for and help them solve their problems.
Does that mean you work a lot with smaller businesses that would appreciate that a lot?
Not exclusively, no. I have
Okay.
some very large companies that I work with
Okay.
because I've had relationships with them for a long
In
period of
Web3?
time. I do work with some large technology companies,
Okay.
including some of their work that touches on Web3. So
Okay.
it's just what's unique about what I've tried to focus on doing is adapt what I am able to advise on over time, and try to basically not be so focused on, when I say over lawyering, you don't get 4 people coming to a meeting. You don't get 20-page memos. You get me providing practical advice. Here's the problem, here's the solution, here's what we do to implement it. And that is partly a function of being effective at advice and helping people solve their problem. That's what they want, but it's also cost effective.
It's interesting because I have a lawyer, as I should have as an entrepreneur myself, and it's true. One of the things I've realized working with him is oftentimes I'm maybe overthinking or over complexifying the situation, probably because there's a lot that I don't know, and so I'm kind of filling the gaps. And he usually says, no, just that's what you need. Draft a letter, for example. These are the elements that you need to have in the letter. And by the way, here's your template, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, great. I can deal with that. I have a practical solution rather than analysis paralysis.
See, one of the challenges is, you would never go into an operating room and perform brain surgery because you'd say, I need so much training. But most people...
Oh, with ChatGPT,
you could probably figure it out. But most people would say, you know what? If I didn't go to law school, I could have gone that. And most people have it in their mind, I could probably do that. And there's some validity to some parts of it, especially about, some elements of common sense in what we do. Good saying I like is there's nothing common about common sense. But, the problem becomes people are less likely, a physician says, here's your treatment, and she gives you a note and says, and here's your prescription, and we'll have a review of this in a couple of months. That's an accepted mode of receiving that professional advice, support, and service. In the legal world, everybody has a second opinion, right? And that can be a challenge, but you have to make sure you have an open dialogue with people and say, what are your issues? What are your concerns? How do we address them? And that's, again, it's very conscious about being independent and trying to have a comfort level that then migrates to trust, because people realize that you are actually working and acting in their best interest.
Yeah, and I guess it also gives you a sense of freedom, right? I mean, you can also kind of choose projects a bit more according to what
Absolutely
your own curiosity, your own interest.
That's right. Yeah, and it gets, the businesses I work with don't have to be entrepreneurs, and I work for some individuals too. They don't have to be entrepreneurs, but I do want them to have that entrepreneurial mindset.
That was clear from the beginning of the interview. You really took me on a tangent right away around kind of the entrepreneurial approach. Final question, if we imagine that we have a crystal ball, or you have a crystal ball in front of you right now, and you somehow are able to predict the future, and I know you're going to say, or probably start by saying that you can't, and that's not legal advice either. But what are some of the things you're seeing in your crystal ball happen to this industry over the next, I'm going to say, year or two, because anything beyond that is so.
So I think we're going to get real
hard
movement
to
on
predict.
open banking, right? So that, I think, it just seems to perpetually sort of say, well, the next parliament will pick that up, but we're going to see a big move in Canada about how the banks interact with their customers, and that will just take a little bit of the sort of, I'll say the stickiness, but the mud that everybody's been trying to get through. It just removes a little bit of that from everybody's boots. And what I hope that means is we have a more open mindset to then have Web3 businesses and Web3 solutions. Because as soon as you have more portability of some elements of data, and you have some standards, right? Because then we're going to have a more easy path to common standards of identity, common portability of data, you soon get into, and again, the privacy legislation that's going to die in the order paper, but finally rebooting how we do our privacy law. It incorporates all of this together. So now all of a sudden, the sandbox has some of that pollution eliminated, right? Some of those impediments that these Web3 businesses have faced. And I think there's great things to come from it. And part of the reason I'm very bullish on the sector and Canada's role in it is we have great trained people. There's lots of bright, young, smart people. They want to succeed. They want to work hard. They want to add value, right? So as soon as we start eliminating some of the crust that's in place, I think we have big things ahead.
Exciting. We're finishing on a very positive note. We've kind of gone through a journey of the pitfalls and the risks and the opportunities and the attitudes and, a lot of the considerations. We've talked a little bit about kind of the geopolitical environment we find ourselves into. Where can people find you if they want to look you up online? We'll link that, of course, in the video.
The website I have is georgewaggott.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. Those are great ways to get me. Yeah.
Perfect. And you also have a podcast, by the way, called The World of Work. So people can find you there too.
Yeah, so worldofwork.ca is effectively a separate part of my business where I'm collaborating with human resources leaders and sort of what's changing in the world of work. It's adjacent to my law practice, so I do that as well.
Great. Thank you very much, George.
All right, thank you, Flo.
It's been a pleasure.